Welcome back to New Voices with Stephanie Fisher. My guest is Mary Louise Serafine from Austin, Texas. Welcome back, Mary Lou.
And Hello, I'm
welcome,
glad
welcome.
to be here.
Thank you,
Thank you.
And I want to continue this Iraq discussion because you're shocking me there a little bit. What right does America have to go in another country and tell them how to bring democracy to another country? We don't really have it here.
Yeah, I've heard a joke line about that actually. You know that the joke line was that Iraqis are having such a hard time putting together a constitution, and we should just give them ours because we're not using it anyway.
True. True.
It's not about whether we have a right or not have a right. It's about protecting the United States from the onslaught of Islamic fascism.
Then why aren't we in Afghanistan?
We are. What do you mean? Why aren't we in Afghanistan?
Well, we're there, but we forgot about the Bin Laden.
Well, I don't know about forgetting about him. We certainly haven't found him, as I believe that we should have done.
Maybe. Well, he probably has the weapons. Okay.
Well, the weapons of mass destruction don't matter very much to me. I will say this: it's very clear, it's painfully clear that our intelligence about that whole part of the world is very flawed, and I think one of the responsibilities of the federal government is to obtain accurate intelligence, which wasn't happening.
Is it flawed or manipulated?
I don't think it's manipulated.
We used the New York Times. We didn't, but the White House used the New York Times and Judith Miller. Dick Cheney would go on Meet the Press and say, well, the New York Times is behind us, and they're a liberal paper. New York Times supporters, the Washington Post supporters. We manipulated the press. We manipulated this country. We bullied. We bullied. If you stood up against this war, you were anti-American. Yeah,
well, the reason for that is I think the difference between recognizing that we're either in a war against Islamic terrorism or we're not in a war. And I think the people who support what we're doing in Iraq, myself included, think that the United States is caught in a long-term war against terrorism, and it began long ago. Unfortunately, at the time of the earlier bombings, we really didn't respond appropriately. We didn't do anything. I feel that we're into this now, finally taking it seriously at a very, very late date.
If we took it seriously, I don't think that the 9/11 would have happened.
I think that's right. I think there was...
I'm shocked. You agree with me, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the moment. Thank you.
Well, I think a lot of missteps in, by the federal government. It had to be federal because it's the federal government that's charged with national defense. All kinds of mistakes and bad priorities led to 9/11, and obviously they need not to be repeated. But I think that the problem of Iraq still is that our intelligence is very poor. It seems to me that it's not really clear exactly who we're fighting, except it does appear that Iran is supporting the insurgents.
You really believe that?
That Iran is supporting the insurgents?
Well, that's what the White House want us to believe. If you see a Iranian in Iraq and he's not friendly, shoot him. That's another thing I want to talk to you about because we have a president that was educated at Yale.
Uh-huh.
Talking about your affirmative action, but thanks to his father. And the first thing out of this man's mouth is always shoot to kill. Dead or alive, shoot to kill, like Katrina. Their looters, shoot to kill. After 9/11, we were dead or alive. Just when I was a boy. Where's the intellect? Where's the evolution in education? If your first thought is to shoot and kill. You don't even see anybody. We're so arrogant. We won't even talk to Iran or Syria. There's no meetings where our first step is just go and bomb them.
my opinion is that the diplomacy in the past with those with Iran and Syria has not worked. Certainly, diplomacy with Iran has not worked over a very, very, very long time. So I'm not particularly in favor of trying to negotiate with them anymore at all. And it certainly doesn't seem to me that they are even the slightest bit interested in negotiating with us. Let's
So
go back
bomb them. So we're just going to start a war.
um,
Even the Newsweek are saying that the other Republicans feel that Bush want to go to start a war in Iran.
My opinion is that I personally do not have the intelligence to know at this time whether that was a good idea or not. Certainly, I would, if there is intelligence to support that, I would be in favor of it. It's not for me anyway, something that I've been able to follow closely enough. But if that's what the country decides to do, if that's what the president decides to do, I would trust him on that, and I'm inclined to.
This president, you would trust?
I don't trust the president on everything, but on that I would.
Are you?
And let me say something about the.
I'm trying to. Okay, you speak while I'll survive my heart attack. Go ahead.
All right. On the shoot to kill. If you're in a war, there is no other reason to shoot except to kill. If you're not expecting to shoot to kill, then you just shouldn't shoot, or you just shouldn't be there. But if you're in a war, that's what you do. You shoot to kill. Now, the president's intelligence and where he went to school and stuff like that, here's what I have to say about it. We can debate his personality and his education and stuff for a really long time. The only reason to support a president or not support a president is what his policies are and what his administration is doing. In that sense, I support Bush on a lot of the foreign policy that he's doing. I don't support Bush on his position on illegal immigration, and I don't support Bush on everything. But I would, I don't really care what his personality is.
But you support him on foreign policy. He's like the only president who never traveled overseas. He's the only person who has the worst view of foreign policy.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider travel to be an important factor. I can
but
see why you
could see the country. I mean, he didn't even know. We started rocking Iraq, and he had no idea. They had no idea, this administration, about the different tribal in Iraq. So now we started this whole civil war. We have children not being educated 4.5 years. They can't even go to school. Teachers are being killed. So all we have done, I feel, is breed more violence and give birth to young terrorists. They'll take a gun before they'll take a book. They're being paid to drop off backpacks with bombs in it. Their whole life in 4 years have been nothing but bombing. We killed over 150,000 civilians.
Well, we haven't. We are
the
not
bombs.
the only
We're not
ones
responsible.
We're not the only ones responsible for civilian death. That's for sure. First of all, my understanding is that education and education for children and so forth is vastly better in other parts of Iraq other than Baghdad, and so. You can read reports and so on about schools that have been built and that are operating, health clinics and hospitals that have been built and that are operating, and I think things are much better in other parts of the country than the problem in Baghdad.
Are you serious? Really? No, I haven't seen anything like that. I haven't seen anything where things are better.
Yeah, and my answer to that would be that the liberal mainstream press is not interested in publicizing that.
Watch it, sister.
Well, that's what I think. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, the Associated Press, they're not interested in publicizing any of those things. And I would recommend that people who want to get the full picture of what's happening in Iraq read more of the news that's available on the Internet, where new websites are publishing other reports from soldiers, reports from military, reports from Iraqis who are eyewitnesses to new hospitals and new schools and so forth. So, in my opinion, the mainstream media is very biased.
Now, the websites, are they put out by Cheney and Newt Gingrich? I mean,
no, they're not.
so they're not conservative websites that you're reading?
There are some good and interesting conservative websites, but they're certainly not, all coming from one source like the federal government. I don't think, to my knowledge, I don't know that the administration necessarily ever reads them. The ones that I read that I like a lot are powerlineblog.com and realclearpolitics.com. Those are two websites that I follow very closely every day, and the WashingtonTimes.com.
So realclear.com?
Realclearpolitics.com. That's one of my favorite websites.
Because it's clear. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, Real Clear Politics. It actually has a broad spectrum of both liberal views and conservative views.
And on that note, I'm going to continue this segment in another minute. You're with Stephanie Fisher with New Voices on TribecaRadio.net.